Want to create amazing spaceships but just can't model? Today we're going to be talking about a technique called kitbashing that will give you that ability effortlessly. Before we get started, we're going to be using two very cool things from Digital SHIPYARD on ArtStation. The first is the amazing kitbash packs as modeled by Kim Merzen and Alexander Ivanov, and the second is my space opera textures, along with my free spaceship texturing tools, which you can actually get from Fraser effects. Link is of course in the description. But what is kitbashing? Kitbashing is a really simple idea that goes even back to the original Star Wars movies. Instead of hand making all of that detail, they took model kits and bashed the pieces together. Maybe bashing is the wrong term, but you get the idea. Little things like missiles and other stuff help to make the models really come alive and feel lived in and real. It also saved them a ton of time, since most of their time was actually spent creating interesting base shapes, which we'll talk about later, and then arranging details on top of them, instead of having to intricately create all of the details by hand. In Blender, this is just as easy, only now people create incredible sets of 3D models made just for this. I personally love Kim Merzen and Alexander Ivanov's packs, but I also use this cool kit called the Star Wars Ship Bashing Kit from Blender Market. These all cost a little bit of money, but not a lot. It's way less than ILM paid in 1976 for tank kits, that's for sure. Now for the asset browser. If you haven't used the asset browser before, it's pretty straightforward. Start by creating a library folder somewhere on your hard drive. In Blender, go to Edit, Preferences, File Paths, and make sure you have an asset library created. You can paste in the file path from the folder we created, or you can just find it on your computer. Give it a name and you have a library. You can have as many of these as you want, really. Then, in a new instance of Blender, import all of the objects. Make sure they're separated and the origin points are set up properly. You can do this by hitting the space bar, or whatever your search thing button is, and searching for Set Origin to Geometry. Or if you want the origin point to be somewhere more specific, you can select the faces where you want the origin point to be centered, do the 3D cursor to selected operation, then outside of edit mode, set origin to 3D cursor. If you're going to take apart another 3D model to get parts for your kitbashing collection, here are some good shortcuts to know. L will select everything connected to whatever your mouse is hovering over, and P will allow you to separate objects into a separate mesh based on what's selected, or based on a number of other things. These details aren't yours, so don't give them out as a kit to other people. Now in the outliner, select everything you want to put in the asset browser, right-click and click Make Asset. This is going to add everything to this project file's asset library. But how do we access the library? Split the view and make the new panel an Asset Library window. Now you can see all of our items here. In this window, you can sort your assets into appropriate folders and subfolders to keep yourself organized. Then, when you save your .blend file, save it to the location of the asset library you set in your preferences folder. That way, you can access these models in any blend file. Otherwise, they'll only show up in this one. Now in a new Blender project, we can see all of our kitbashing assets in our asset library ready to go. Just click and drag it into the 3D viewport to use it. Now, how do we actually make cool looking spaceships with this technique? I think it's first of all important to remember that you may not like your results at first. It'll take time to make cool looking spaceships, but here are my tips and tricks. In all sci-fi, but especially in Star Wars, an iconic shape is really what makes an iconic vessel. Make sure to spend the bulk of your time making a base mesh that's actually interesting. That way the details don't have to try to carry the whole thing and cover up ugly design. Again, takes time to master, but think about this part first. Now I also found a mirroring technique that's way better than modifiers. If you just put everything you want to mirror into a mirror collection, you can create an instance of the mirror collection and just flip it across your desired axis. Pro tip, this also works for radial arrays. Just make multiple copies of your collection, rotate it a bit. Way better than trying to add a modifier to every object. Then, when you're ready to export your model, use the Make Instances Real operation to apply that mirroring and get back all those real polys. My third tip is actually to have good materials from the get-go. You're gonna have to do this at some point in the process, but they just help me to visualize my model a lot better as I'm making it. You can create them separately and add them to your asset library for quick importing into scenes. If you want to know how to create cinema quality, and I mean like Rogue One quality spaceship materials really fast, you can watch this video I made on that topic. It's everything you need to know and all of my handy tricks boiled down.